Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hamden Virtual Town Hall on Homelessness, held as part of the Housing Equals Justice Conference held by the Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness. My name is Madeline Ravish from the Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness, although I'm also here as a proud Hamden resident, excited to hear what our panelists have to say to all of us today. So a little bit about this conference for anybody who's joining for the first time. This is, as I said, part of the Housing Equals Justice Conference, which CCH has been holding. We've been amazed to have over 1,000 people from all across the country coming to join us. We've had over 50 different towns represented in the people who signed up, as well as 30 different states. And it's really been a privilege to hear our panelists and attendees talk about topics like criminal justice, racial justice, and economic justice as they relate to homelessness. And we've obviously been doing a lot of looking at the issue of COVID and how it is really reshaping what we need to do to address homelessness in our towns and cities across the state. So if you're enjoying this conference or enjoying this session, please help us tell the world that housing equals justice. We do have hashtags ATI 2020, Housing Equals Justice, and End Homelessness. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So again, please help us tell the world that housing equals justice. And of course, a special thank you to our sponsors, Bank of America and Zillow, who've made it possible for us to offer this conference to our guests free of charge, which is so important. We've had people from all walks of life come and join us, and we think that having it free is the way it should be. So thank you, Bank of America and Zillow. And if you haven't already, please check out our store at cch.org. We have t-shirts, just like the one I'm wearing, mugs, and face masks. So please check out the store. Proceeds go towards efforts to end homelessness in Connecticut. And so with that, I am excited to introduce our presenters. Adam Sendroff actually will be introducing our presenters in a little bit more depth in just a moment. He is the head of the Keefe Center in the town of Hamden. We also have Sergeant William Onofrio, who also goes by Sergeant Billy, Lisbette De La Cruz from Columbus House, Phil Costello from Cornell Scott Hill Health Center, and Theresa Ott from Hamden Public Schools. So before turning it over to Adam to moderate, I'd like to introduce our CEO, Richard Cho, another proud Hamden resident who would like to say a few words.
Yeah, thank you, Madeline. I'm really excited about this event and this particular session for a number of reasons. First of all, as some of you know who've been following our Housing Equals Justice conference, you know that we provided more information about a municipal initiative that we've launched in partnership with the Connecticut Conference on Municipalities, along with Sustainable CT, where we are really launching a campaign to try to engage as many towns and cities across Connecticut to raise their hand and say they're going to do more to step up and help us to end homelessness and pursue a number of actions. And I think one of the key actions that they can take is to really raise awareness and to speak with residents about homelessness and also understand what it is that they're seeing in their towns and communities. The idea for this particular town hall really came about because I was invited by Adam to join a roundtable discussion as the town of Hamden was planning regarding their use of community development block grant funds that they received under the CARES Act. And what we had heard was a number of different housing needs that we're seeing across the town of Hamden. So that really kind of inspired this idea for, what if we could spark a movement where we can inspire maybe all 169 towns and cities across Connecticut to hold their own virtual town hall forums. So this is the first of what we hope will be many municipal town hall forums. And I think there's no better place to start than my own hometown of Hamden. Some of you watched the Get Out the Vote rally that we held, and I actually went downtown to Government Center and dropped off my ballot during that session. As Madeline mentioned, I am a resident of Hamden. I live a few blocks away from many other leaders who work in homelessness, so y'all may think Hartford's the capital of Connecticut, but the truth is that Hamden is the capital of ending homelessness in Connecticut, and Hamden is really where a lot of the homelessness leaders live. So I have a lot of hometown pride these days, been spending a lot of time at home with the COVID emergency, and I'm just really proud of the efforts that our town is making here to support efforts to end homelessness, which you'll hear about some today. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Adam, but I really want to thank you, Adam, for your leadership in ending homelessness. I know during the COVID emergency, we really reached out to you and to Mayor Leng here in Hamden, and you guys really did step up. So thank you so much, and really looking forward to this town hall.
Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you, Madeline. We have a really great panel here today. We have Theresa Ott, who's the Director of Pupil Personnel Services at Hamden Public Schools. We also have Lisbette De La Cruz, who's the Senior Manager of Outreach and Engagement at Columbus House. We have Phil Costello, the Clinical Director of Greater New Haven Healthcare for the Homeless from Cornell Scott Hill Health Center. And we have Sergeant William Onofrio from the Hamden Police Department, who's the head of the new Neighborhood Initiative Unit, too. So, if you're not that familiar with Hamden, Hamden is a municipality that has a little over 60,000 people in it. It'll be interesting to see once this census is completed. I think it will probably go up a little bit. We have a poverty rate that hovers generally around 10% or so, but a metric that might be a bit more useful is the Great United Way ALICE population. And I'm sure most of you know, but if you don't, ALICE is an acronym for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. And that number is about 40%. So we have about 40% of residents who are struggling to make ends meet. So in this session, what we'd like to do is sort of tell the story of what we've been doing the last few years, the various initiatives and collaborations that have been formed to really help address homelessness in Hamden. And I'd say too, we didn't really start out with a master plan or a framework. We really just saw needs and then tried to address those needs. And in doing so, we forged a lot of partnerships. We'll talk about funding sources a little bit. We established some funding sources. We're able to gain support and hopefully increase awareness of the issue while helping a lot of some of the most vulnerable members of our community. Hopefully this will be helpful to maybe some other municipalities. I remember, for example, when we put together our warming center a couple of years ago, some citizens from Branford contacted us and wanted to know how we did it in the hopes that they could as well. So the order of discussion today, first I'd like to talk with Theresa Ott about Hamden Public Schools and youth homelessness issues. And then from there, we'll move on to the various collaborations with Columbus House, including our warming center, but other things that we do together as well. And then we'll talk about the Hamden Police Department Neighborhood Initiative and Cornell Scott Hill Health Center Street Medicine Team. During that part, we hope to hear from John, who's a member of our community who is experiencing homelessness right now. And then close up by talking about future plans and then taking some questions as well. But if we could start with Theresa Ott from Hamden Public Schools.
Hi, Adam.
Hi, Theresa. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about Hamden Public Schools' approach. What do you see? How do you deal with it in terms of housing insecure students and people experiencing homelessness?
So we really have, when we look at homelessness and how it impacts students and their education, we really look at it from two different perspectives. So we have a law, the McKinney-Vento Act is really what outlines the structure of what we can do for students, what we should be doing for students. And so it's very specific. It talks about having a liaison in the district that can connect with families to determine if they are in a homeless situation. And then there are rights that the child has in terms of being able to remain in their school of origin or where they were attending prior to becoming homeless. Oftentimes, families can stay with family members, but that family member may live in another town. They may live in North Haven, they may live in New Haven. So the McKinney-Vento Act and the structure of it really allows the child to remain in their home school rather than moving depending on where they're physically staying in the overnight time. So it really helps to provide a little bit more stability for the children, being able to stay with their community, their school community, and it really does what it allows us to do. So what I had said, we have two aspects to this. You've got the structure of the law. which tells us what we need to do and gives us some of those resources. But then there really is the heart that is behind the law. And this is where I really feel that the school community comes into play. We can follow the law and we will register the child, allow them to stay in the school, and provide them transportation from wherever they happen to be staying. But what really comes into play is the people in the school buildings, our social workers, our psychologists, our principals, our teachers. We connect a staff member with the family, and they are not only helping that family get the transportation and stay registered in the school, but they also ask them, what are your other needs? How can we connect you to community resources? Informing them of what those resources are, how they can fill out applications for certain resources, so they can help the family to find additional supports. And then within that school building, we really are now aware that we have children in an unstable home situation. And so now we have an awareness and we have the ability to see how that situation might be impacting the child educationally, socially, emotionally. And it really allows us to see it through a different lens, a more compassionate lens. And with all of that comes monitoring. You can check with the child. How are you? Are you still, have we found a home for you yet? What else can we do for you? We have the coat drive to help provide coats. We can get backpacks. We can get materials for them. So it really is just a link with someone in the school building that can be that support for them and help guide them through what is a really incredibly challenging process.
Thank you. Are you the McKinney-Vento rep? Yes, I thought you would be. So what trends have you seen with housing insecure families with students?
There are really two that we've seen, and this is where the challenge comes in. We have families who are financially insecure, and so they may lose the ability to pay rent or pay mortgage, or they may become evicted, and so now they're seeking another apartment or they're seeking another home, saving up money. They may have lost a job and unable to pay that. So we see that typically. The one that is really the most challenging, I would say, is homes where there's domestic violence. So you will have a parent that is fleeing domestic violence or working to get the children out of a situation where there's domestic violence. And to me, that brings another layer of responsibility for us, I think, in following through and connecting them with the appropriate resources. Conversations at the school level about making sure we're touching base with the children. Is there a group that they can join? Do they need a trusted adult on campus that can do daily check-ins? So it really, again, you have the law, but then I think there's everything else that we can build in to help support them through these really challenging times and give them that consistency that they need.
Thank you. Could you talk maybe a little bit about the role of the principals, social workers, and psychologists?
To be honest, it's really a team effort. It's we have referral processes, and this not just for homeless, but for any scenario. Typically, your frontline worker is that classroom teacher, the one whose name is on the roster, and this is my teacher. And while they're teaching our children and while they're working with them and keeping them safe and helping them progress, they also have those eyes in the back of their head, or that sensitivity to, what am I noticing with this child? And if there's a concern, they can then reach out to the social worker, the principal, the school psychologist. And typically we have a small team at the school made up of those people, excuse me. And those people will then reach out, either do an interview with the child, just a quick conversation to find out what's going on, or reach out to the family and see if there's any needed support. They help the parents. There is an application, which is it's can be misunderstood. It's not an application in the sense that you have to apply and I get to think about it and whether or not I hand you your materials. We need to have an application so that we do know where are the addresses that you need transportation to and from, who is the contact number if we're unable to reach you. So the school team helps fill out those applications, helps reassure the family, we are working on this, we're going to connect you with something, and they keep them updated. It could be the principal, it could be the psychologist. Typically it's the social worker working in conjunction with them. Our social workers are the ones that we share information that we get from the Hamden North Haven Collaborative when we talk about those community resources and linking people together. A lot of our social workers go to trainings to help work with trauma impacted families. So they're really the hub, the heart of it. But I don't want to take away the work that any of the other staff members do. It really is sort of an all hands on deck, and whoever we can get that connects with the family. Sometimes families are averse to receiving support. And so we really try to be delicate in our approach, respect the family's boundaries in terms of privacy and sensitivity. And so as a team, we have conversations about who's going to call, who should talk with mom, who does mom trust, who does dad trust. And so it really, everybody plays a role in each situation.
Yeah, I know we get a lot of referrals from Hamden Public Schools to the Keefe Community Center, whether it's for food or heating assistance or rental assistance.
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine that the hybrid schedule now and having some students remote as well. What are some of the current challenges with COVID and the hybrid schedule?
The schedule itself presented challenges with transportation. I will say that definitely. For those that aren't familiar, there's a rotating schedule. So it's, at least at the elementary level, there's 4 days on, 1 day off, depending on what grade you're in. It's a shortened schedule, which significantly impacted families and their ability to work a full day. So that was challenging. But the transportation was complicated, but we were able to manage it. It's just a lot of really great people working together and being proactive about it. And I think we have a good system now in terms of being able to determine where a child's going to be, where they need to be picked up, and how they can be brought home. And then matching it up to their schedule. Sibling schedule may be different. I say that probably the harder part about this is contacting the families at the beginning of the year, letting them know that they have an option for remote or hybrid, letting them know that we can help you with access to laptop if you need that in the home, access to hotspots. That was very challenging as well. Mm-hmm. Getting the Chromebooks to the families. If you are a family who's living in a homeless shelter in Stratford, coming to pick up your laptop at Hamden High School at a prescribed time on a Friday morning might be really challenging for you. So we needed to be aware of not just saying, well, they didn't come and get it, but actually reaching out and saying, we have this here for you. We've got, and we have principals taking Chromebooks to people's homes. We have staff members driving out to another district to make sure there's a hotspot in the home if they're staying with family members somewhere else. So it is a layered process of communication between the staff members and making sure that we are constantly saying, where is this child? Where is this child? And how can we get this to them? So it has been a lot of work, but I would say we have done a really phenomenal job just from the top down. And I mean that from Jody and his support of all of our efforts to get food out to the family members and his, when he says, anything you need, tell me what you need, let's do that. And then you've got everyone underneath that's part of that process, all the way down to paraprofessionals who have such great relationships with students. They're the ones that can look at a kid and go, something's not going on here. And it really is just, it's an entire community process.
Thank you, Theresa. Yeah, and I agree. Really, you've done a great job meeting a bunch of needs during this difficult time. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we move on to next topic?
Really just for anyone that is aware of a family that may be in an unstable home situation rather, and they're just not sure who to reach out to, please let them know not to be fearful. You can reach out to the front desk clerk, you can reach out to the principal, you can reach out to the music teacher. Someone in your school will be able to help provide you with guidance, and once you're referred, you're going to continue to have that guidance to walk you through that process.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Theresa. So next, I'd like to talk about partnerships between the town of Hamden and Columbus House. And we have Lisbette De La Cruz here from Columbus House. And to just give a little bit of background, the working relationship has gone back at least a decade. and the town has funded through a public service agency grant, really call them mini grants because they're not that big. But we have been funding Columbus House for over a decade to help offset the costs of Hamden people that are using shelters that Columbus House runs in New Haven. And then the partnership really kicked up a couple years ago when we started talking about putting together an overnight winter warming center, which we've run in 2019, the winter of 2019 and the winter of 2020, which was a real partnership between the town, Columbus House, and some local churches. It's been run at Grace and St. Peter's Episcopal Church and also Hamden Plains Methodist Church too. And before I have Lisbette sort of talk about it a bit, I'd say the origins of it were emergency management meetings that I would attend before winter storms with the mayor and with public works director, the fire chief, and the police chief. And it was it was an issue that kept coming up whenever there'd be an ice storm or a big snowstorm, how to handle unsheltered people that show up at the firehouse seeking shelter, coming to the police department building lobby. And more and more, I was becoming aware of this, and I would hear from the elderly services director, the library director, and in late 2018, in late October, we got together with Allison Cunningham, who was the head of Columbus House at the time, and Lisbette and a bunch of department heads to really talk about what we could do. Lisbette?
Yes, thank you, Adam.
Yes, take it from there.
Yes, so the warming center idea, as you mentioned, started 2 years ago in the fall of 2018. And most of us here already know what a warming center is, but what it is truly a warming space, a place to keep people safe. It's a low barrier environment where clients can come in from outdoors in the winter months. Traditionally, January or so, when the weather really takes a turn to be very cold. So we did do the warming center the first year at Grace and St. Peter's, and also the Hamden Plains Methodist Church, where we split it halfway, and we saw some changes and trends when we did make that move, and I think that attributed to the fact that the Hamden Plains Church was closer to New Haven, so there was a lot of traffic from New Haven, where there was also a warming center, but there's always a need for sheltering overnight clients. But the warming center really serves that purpose. It is the goal is to save lives. Columbus House started the warming center in Hamden, and it was really just an overnight place for people to just stay warm, and we would offer a coffee or a tea, and just a safe place to be for the night. The first year we saw some numbers on average. I think we were seeing about 21 to 25 individuals each night, and that went up and down depending on the weather, depending on the place where we were actually too, that was impactful. But we started with this collaboration, and I think I just want to highlight some of the things that we did together. You and I were in constant communication, which was key. It was informative both ways. Whenever there was a need to change the schedule due to weather, we would follow the cold weather protocol of Hamden. We would also follow, obviously, the state when the governor declared a cold weather emergency. So what that really looked like was us extending our hours, working alongside with the library, with the police department and the fire department to help support individuals who would leave in the morning, but instead, if there's a storm coming, they would stay 24 hours or even 48 hours. I believe we did a 2-day run once. And if it was a weekday, we would collaborate also with the libraries, where either they would open early, or we would close a little late in the morning, so that they can also use the library as a place to shelter from the cold. And as you mentioned, the police station also served as a warming center where folks would just seek shelter from the cold there during the day. But it was a true collaboration from the very beginning until the very last day that we operated. So I can't say anything more than that. Obviously, we do continue to make plans for a future warming center for this coming season. What that looks like, we don't know yet, but we definitely have some concern about what the winter looks like this year.
Thank you, Lisbette. One of the great things about working with Columbus House is that, you know, the warming center isn't just a safe place, but you'll be you're able to help connect people to services. And I know you were able to get some folks to take advantage of case management services, and maybe even get some people into housing as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Right. And what we were doing was we would have staff come in the very early morning. First of all, as someone walks in, one of the questions that they were asked is, are you interested in shelter? If they were to say yes, we would offer them the use of the phone so that they can call 211. We would share resources of local shelters in New Haven that served as a walk-in shelter, the Overflow one, and the other, the Grand Avenue Shelter, ESMS. And then we started having some of the outreach staff go in the mornings at around 5 o'clock in the morning. And we did that just so that we can make a face-to-face contact with clients. And the ability to make that connection really allowed us to engage clients into the CAN process and provide verifications and helping them move into a more permanent shelter, or housing, or get them into the shelter system if that's what they wanted. But it also allowed us to provide case management support to those individuals who did not make it into a shelter, or who just chose not to do that. And we engaged over 15 individuals, and I don't have the concrete number, but I can say that over 10 of those have been housed through the CAN between the 2018-2019 winter and then this past season that we did. So again, it's a collaboration, so it's not just Columbus House staff. We also work closely with Phil's team and others in New Haven that provide this service. But it's essential that we felt that we needed to be there and to make that face-to-face contact to be able to engage with clients into broader services, and not just shelter. It could be treatment. It was getting them involved into daytime programs that were open, getting them connected to entitlements and resources in the community as well.
That's tremendous. I remember it was quite a process to find appropriate places for this to take place. You just can't really do it anywhere, and that'll be something for us to talk about in the coming weeks, to see what we might be able to do this winter.
Yeah, it was very important to be on the bus line for one, and to also have access to just the local resources. So having the police station right across the street provided very great support for the staff and also the clients for security purposes. And as I mentioned earlier, it is a low barrier place, so we're not doing in-depth searches or where clients would normally go through a shelter entering process. But it was very natural and humbling just to have the police officers come through and say, hey, here we are. Is there anything you guys need, for not just the staff, but the clients as well? And I wanted to just also say that in the spirit of collaboration, when we did have to extend our hours, we would get support from the local churches. We would get support for food from local restaurants who would come in and bring in meals for the clients. And often we would have volunteers from Grace in St. Peter's that would provide a nice warm breakfast in the morning before they left, or have them come in early on Friday nights to share a meal while they were doing their dinner for $1, which was pretty nice.
Right. Yeah, that dinner for $1 was great and a very nice tie-in to the warming center. And I think it's important to keep in mind too that the warming center is 7 days a week, seven nights a week.
Right.
Yeah. Internally too, just to say a few words about Hamden and how we funded it. So Mayor Leng was a big supporter. We have a Human Services Commission here too. They were a very big supporter, and the Legislative Council additionally gave great support too. So this wasn't budgeted in our town budget, but we were able to do transfers to make it happen the first year. And then subsequently, it is something that the mayor and the Legislative Council has put into the town budget. So that's been great. And as you mentioned, the churches have been great partners as well. And I also want to mention that with the press that we got from it and the press releases, the generosity from the people of Hamden, not only individuals, but different organizations as well. They gave so many donations of things that we were looking for: socks, underwear, hot beverages, and snacks, that it was really overwhelming, the amount of generosity that came through. And we're able to get a lot of data too, through the check-in process.
Right.
Too, I remember. So we have that as well. And there were some challenges you mentioned. We had, sometimes it was extremely crowded, and safety and security were something we would always keep in mind too, for the safety of the clients.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
And we were able to overcome all of those challenges, and the staff that provided the oversight of the warming centers were really great in letting us know what their needs were and what they were observing with the clients, and how to keep the space safe.
So you're also responsible for the outreach and engagement team too at Columbus House, which is something else. Could you briefly explain what that is, and then how you've worked with Hamden specifically with that?
Right. So the outreach and engagement team is a group of case managers, recovery coach, and a recovery support specialist. We have 8 staff, and then we also work with the CAN for a CAN outreach specialist. So the group goes out into the field, into the communities locally in New Haven, as well as Hamden and other municipalities. And we've worked with Hamden in particular whenever there's a report of an encampment, or there's a need or some activity that we can provide outreach and guidance to help with the clients that are in the Hamden area. We go out, we engage with individuals where they are, in their encampment. If they're outside, if they're utilizing a bus stop for shelter, we would go there. And it's just an office in the field, going out and meeting clients literally where they're sleeping. And Adam and I are in communication whenever he gets a report, and then I would normally send a team out within a day or two.
We certainly appreciate that. I just want to conclude this section of the talk by saying that we're very excited that through the CARES Act CDBG COVID money, we're going to be funding a part-time case manager from Columbus House specifically for Hamden.
And we are very excited, Adam.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you so much, Lisbette.
Thank you.
So next, I'd like to bring in Sergeant Onofrio and also Bill Costello from Cornell Scott Hill Health Center to talk about another aspect of what we've been doing. So Sergeant Onofrio is with the Neighborhood Initiative Unit, which is a new police unit. And, you know, just to kind of set the stage, I remember former Chief Weiger would always say, homelessness is not illegal. And I think he really set the tone. He would say that all the time. And we work, Sergeant Onofrio and I have worked quite a bit during COVID on different food security efforts. So Sergeant Onofrio, would you mind talking a little bit about the Neighborhood Initiative and how you've started to react to what we saw was sort of an increase in visibly the higher amounts of panhandling and unsheltered people?
Yeah, thank you, Adam. So to start, the police administration formed the Neighborhood Initiative Unit about a year ago, mainly to deal with quality of life issues and community relations. So we had just formed it, and then COVID hits us, and we got kind of off track a little bit in terms of what our mission was with that. And I had met Adam, and he had introduced me to some of the food drives that he'd been doing throughout town. So we started partnering with Adam in the food drives and offering support, security, and traffic there. And that kind of opened our eyes to the food insecurity that existed in Hamden. I had some experience with the homeless population. Previously, I was a patrol sergeant, and I had been stopping in at the warming shelters nightly and just offering security and support. So I kind of had an idea of what we were dealing with. But when COVID did hit, we did start seeing an increase in the impoverished population and the homelessness in Hamden. Mainly, it was very visible on Dixwell Avenue, a lot of beggars, a lot of panhandlers. We started receiving a lot of quality of life complaints, citizens inquiring how we were supporting the homeless and what we were doing about it. So we partnered with Adam and kind of started seeing what we could do, what solutions were out there. One of the first things that we did was we started putting care packages in the patrol cars. And all it really was a bag of groceries and some goods that the homeless may need, like a toothbrush and a toothpaste. And we started reaching out to them. Our initial approach to the homeless, there was a lot of fear, a lot of mistrust. They were reluctant to share any information, particularly where there was camping, where the encampments were, and any information about why they were out there, whether it was addiction problems, whether it was a lack of work. So the first couple months were a little difficult. It took us a little while to form those relationships and bonds. So we expanded on that, and we started stopping by and giving them Gatorades. We kept Gatorades in the cruisers. We gave them sunscreen in the summer. So eventually we kind of were able to build some relationships. And it also allowed us to kind of assess the population and see what we were dealing with. I think our last assessment, we were assessing that we had on a daily basis, probably between 10 and 15 different people panhandling along Dixwell Avenue. And we assessed some of the shelters, and we did some outreach at the shelters. When I say shelters, I mean the encampments. So then by building a relationship, you started to realize that we had a pretty significant mental health problem within our homeless population that wasn't being treated at all. And there were some healthcare concerns that us as police officers really couldn't address besides calling the fire department out every time we had an interaction. So Adam reached out to Cornell and Scott, and we started partnering with them with some outreach efforts for healthcare, mental health, and some substance abuse personnel that came out weekly, or still are coming out weekly with us, and just doing outreach work, just visiting everybody and seeing what the needs are. And I think the outcome has been numerous individuals have found shelter. They've gotten services. A lot of our individuals have gotten mental health services, and the healthcare has been very, very important. And then we took that. We're starting to take that a step further. Whereas now we're looking into some harm reduction programs, and me and Adam are delving into the crisis intervention team models. So we're just kind of plugging along. We're servicing the homelessness, and we're really just treating them right, and we're not chasing anybody away. We definitely had some bonds and some trust that we repaired, and we got a pretty good grasp on it, and they know to reach out to us. They're flagging down our cruisers when they're driving by, letting us know what they need and how we can help them. And I think we're making a difference.
Thank you very much, Sergeant. So I want to bring in Phil Costello from Cornell Scott Hill Health Center, who is really known for street medicine. And Phil, I was wondering if you could talk about street medicine in general, and then talk about the work you've been doing in Hamden.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd just like to do a quick shout out to Lisbette and to Sergeant Onofrio. I can't speak highly enough about both of them. They're both amazing. What Sergeant has done with his team to establish trust and to get to know the homeless is very important in being able to manage issues that might come up around working with the homeless. And Lisbette has been a rock for us in New Haven and in Hamden. So just a quick shout out. What my team does is we go out to meet the homeless where they are. We provide medical help as needed. We try to establish a pattern and a relationship with them. The homeless are very, a lot of times they're very worried. A lot of times the people have a lot of PTSD. They have mental health issues in many cases. Many cases for the homeless, they have also cognitive issues. So it's very important in order to be able to help them, in order to be able to gain their trust, to be able to help them long term. You need to be there for them in the short term, and you need to establish that relationship and that trust, so that when you need to make a suggestion to be able to help them, that they will listen to you. And that's why I'm just so happy to see the Hamden team working with Officer Onofrio's Sergeant Onofrio's team and going forward.
Thank you, Phil. I just have to say it's great to, I'm very appreciative of everything that you and your team do, and it's just really amazing to watch you work. Could you talk a little bit about what you've seen in Hamden and how you're trying to help people and connect them to services?
So sure. So, first of all, with the homeless situation, there's a couple of perfect storms that are happening right now. And one is COVID and the fact that there's a lot less people working, a lot less money out there in general circulating. So the homeless, in terms of where they can go, places that they have to be able to go in and get warm or go in out of the rain, is really dried up because of the COVID. The other perfect storm is our problem with addiction and opiates. When our kids and our high school kids and our college people get addicted to those opiates, it takes about 2 to 3 years to burn through all their relations before they become homeless, with the true addictions. And we're starting to really feel both of those, and hopefully with the evictions, that will not get too much worse. But our team basically, we will do things like medical care for them in terms of if they need prescriptions, if they have infections, if they have, for example, things that they need, if they have high blood pressure, we can fill and get them some medicine. If they have, were at one point on psych medications and they've lost their ability to get that, we can bridge that. We can prescribe that for them and get them connected with those services. We can get out there, and if they have calluses on their feet, we can cut the calluses off or help them with their nails so they fit in their shoes. If they have rashes or fungus from always being wet or always being out there, we can help treat them for that. There's a lot of medical conditions that the homeless get that other populations don't get because they're not exposed to the elements and the lack of ability to change their clothes or their underwear or their socks. That makes it very difficult for them. So all in all, the goal is to always, if we can do something for them that day, to do it. If we can take their pain away that day, to be able to carry some Ambisol or some oil of clove. If they have a toothache, and take that right away. That helps them with their pain, and it helps us build trust to be able to make those bridges to housing and to getting back on their feet as best as they can.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil. And it seems like, watching you build these relationships, you're waiting for that window of opportunity where they will accept help sometimes.
Exactly. Especially very, very important, especially with the people who are addicted to drugs, who have problems with addiction. Basically, you have to be there in those windows of sobriety, and be there and be ready to take them when they're ready to go. Since we started with Hamden, we have gotten a few people off the street and into the addiction programs, which is an important thing.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Tremendous. Thank you, Phil. So I'm just keeping an eye on time. I want to see Sergeant Billy. Are you with John?
Yes.
Okay.
Right here. You want to talk to John?
Well, yeah, let me just just preface this by saying, I'm often in a lot of meetings where we're talking about helping people, but the people we're trying to help aren't necessarily represented or have a voice at the table. So John is somebody who's experiencing homelessness in our community, and I just want to give him a chance to talk about his challenges and maybe some things that he'd like to see.
Hi.
Hi.
Well, some of the challenges that I'm going through right now is, a lot of it is the shelter system itself. The shelter system itself is not cohesive to a lot of us out here. Because the way the shelter system is right now, you got more people that are a criminal first running it, opposed to somebody who is a homeless person first. They're not. And that's what I see more from my experiences, what I've gone through, especially with a place like the Columbus House itself. That's what I've gone through, going through that place, in my experiences that I've seen.
How about the services you're
And the services that I'm getting from Dr. Phil and the officers out here are wonderful. I'll tell you right now, we need more of this around the state as a whole, to be honest with you, because this is what we need more than anything in the world, because these people have been really helping us a lot out here. And this is what we need more, instead of somebody that wants to give us a ticket, opposed to somebody that wants to actually come and give us some food. I think that's more cohesive to what we need, instead of giving a ticket for something that we're not even breaking a law for. Because why? It's our right to hold a sign, because we have the right to protest. It's the same thing as that. So there's no reason for that to be against the law in any town whatsoever, in my opinion, because we're not breaking a law. But why? Because somebody wants to help us. That's their God-given right. Because if we had more people helping, we would not be in such a situation that we are in today. But,
John, thank you very much.
no problem.
Thank you for being a part of this conversation.
Welcome.
So Madeline, I know we're looking to close soon. I want to see if there are any questions for the panel.
Yes, well, and if you have questions, we only have a few more minutes, but want to make sure that everybody knows that you can leave any questions in the Q&A. So first of all, we did have a question about what the schools were doing to reach out to distance learners who may not be showing up, or kids who may not be showing up for school. So Theresa, I wondered if you could speak to that.
Certainly, thank you so much. So we, at the school levels, we have a tiered system of response. It starts with the classroom teacher, obviously reaching out to the family, making sure whether or not they're going to do hybrid or remote, and indicating that. So if a child isn't logging in, or if we're not actually physically seeing them in the building, then that gets almost like it red flagged like as an attendance question. But rather than being punitive, we pose the question, why are we not hearing back from this child? It usually goes to a school level team, again, social worker, psychologist, principal. We then try to reach out to the family that way through any other contact numbers we may have. We reach out to other schools to see if there's siblings that are attending, maybe at the middle school or the high school. And we're actually in the process right now of creating more of a tier 3 level at the district level, where we're trying to create a district level team, so that if the school is unsuccessful after their attempts and after their systems have still failed to either get consistent attendance or any contact with the family, they would then refer it to the district level. And then we would work as a district level team to try to continue that work. It started during the original closure. And so we're just sort of, now that we know what school looks like, we're taking that to another level so that it's a little more consistent and organized, and the follow through is, we can actually follow through more consistently.
That's great. Thank you so much. Another question we had has to do with what we're all doing to get people housed. So we've talked a lot about trying to make sure that we're getting people services when they need services, during periods of homelessness. But what are we doing to actually get people into housing?
Was that another one for me?
That's for any of you.
Yeah, I think that would be good for Lisbette or Phil.
What we do is, initially when we meet with someone that's unsheltered, is start getting them document ready for the coordinated access network process. And that we probably don't have enough time to describe that process, but it really just starts with verifying their status of homelessness, and then continuing with other forms, and just really assessing what their level of need is, and what housing resources are available. So that starts initially from the very beginning. From that moment that we engage a client, we start thinking about, okay, so this person needs shelter, this person needs housing. How do we get to that point? It is a process, as with everything, and resources may be limited at times. So right now we have quite a lot of resources that are geared towards trying to end homelessness in a way that's appropriate for the individual, so that we're not setting people up for future homelessness and recidivism.
You're muted.
Oh, sorry. I should be a pro at this by now, with this conference being 5 days in, but I apologize. So I want to thank everybody here. We don't have any more questions, but do want to encourage everybody out there. You've heard from lots of different people in the town of Hamden, so you know who to get in touch with if you have questions. Please stay in touch with us as well at info@cch.org. But before we close, I do want to say that we have one more person who wants to come up and say a thank you to everybody who's here on the stage. Mayor Leng.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I just want to tell you how proud I am of everyone and the work that we're doing here in town. To hear everyone talking about these really important issues and digging into them and getting to a point where we actually have some results and not just a committee or not just, discussion about what's the right thing to do versus the wrong thing, but actually, moving that ball forward and accomplishing steps. We're not there yet. We have a lot of steps yet to go, but to see that we're actually helping folks and to hear just 30 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago, that the result of this work has already directly impacted folks' lives, whether it's treatment, whether it's, just an assist that day medically or from the PD. This is the Hamden that I want to see, and that I know that you do too. And so I just want to say I really appreciate everybody's efforts, because not every town is as fortunate as we are to have folks like you that are willing to do this very important work and to make it get accomplished effectively and quickly. So thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Mayor Leng. We're glad that you're able to come join us. And thank you to all of you. Adam, I don't know if you'd like to say a couple words just to close us out. And also, one question that people may have is, if somebody is experiencing homelessness, what should they do? So if there's somebody in Hamden experiencing homelessness, what should they do? Adam, can you help answer that? I know I have an answer, but I'm curious what you say.
Well, my initial reaction is they should call 211. But if they need other types of help, they could contact the Keefe Community Center for a food bank, or to see if we could help them with rental assistance or something like that as well. Just in closing that, I feel that we're very fortunate in Hamden to have such a collaborative environment to be able to do this work together.
Well, thank you all. This was really wonderful. What a perfect way to end our Housing Equals Justice Conference, to show what a town that really cares about addressing homelessness looks like, and happy that it was my own town. So very proud of all of you here, and so grateful to all of you for all the work that you do all the time. And Mayor Leng, so nice to have you as a surprise guest. So terrific. This is so fabulous. We've been so excited to hear what Hamden has to say, in part, as we said at the beginning, because we're hoping that other towns across the state may be interested in following the same model. So Hamden, here we are, leading the way. So hoping that this will be a model that other towns are able to replicate during National Hunger and Homelessness Week. So thank you so much to all of you. Just what we have next, well, we have two more things. We have a 3 o'clock Help Not Handcuffs, Improving and Reducing Police Responses. So a very good follow-up to today's conversation. And by the way, I didn't mention a thank you to John. I wanted to just say that we're really grateful that you came and joined us today. So thank you to all of you. And this is really a great opportunity to hear more about police responses and some really sort of cutting edge thinking about what police and towns can do to really address the needs of homeless people experiencing homelessness rather than criminalizing it. And then after that, happy hour. We're happy to be ending this wonderful week with a happy hour open to all. Please come join us. It's wonderful to meet all these people who care so much about ending homelessness. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you to the town of Hamden, and see you soon.